This is the scene where James' mother first met Tu Diep. That afternoon, when the golden sunlight gently fell on the old tiled roof of James's house, James' mother appeared on the third step in elegant high heels, silk scarf wrapped lightly round the neck, and the majestic eyes of an experienced woman. She just came back from abroad, after many years living in Europe, and now standing in front of my son's house. Heart cannot help but flutter. Three things that surprised her the most. It was the girl who was busy cleaning the potted plants. Outside the yard, a simple girl, wearing a t-shirt, faded canvas pants, hands still covered in dirt. Tu Diep and James walked out with nervous looks on their faces, while Tu Diep looked up, caught the woman's sharp gaze. She bowed politely to greet me. "Hello, uncle, I'm Tu Diep." A month passed in silence. James' mother did not reply immediately. She looked at Tu Diep from head to toe, could not hide the surprise in his eyes. Not because of the girl's spread, but because of the gentle and rustic temperament. A completely different kind of person, far from the glamorous ladies she had imagined. For my so. James gently took his mother's hand and introduced himself. "Mom, this is the person I love. The person who was with me during the company's troubles." James's mother nodded slightly, pursed her lips, and invited both of them into the house. In the warm yellow light, she sat opposite Tu Diep, pouring tea with her calm hands. But the eyes still kept a discreet scrutiny. Tu Diep, although somewhat confused, still maintained a polite attitude. To humble but not too shy. "What do you do for a living?" she asked in a soft but powerful voice. "I used to work in a garment factory. Now I sell vegetables at the market and help my family." Tu Diep replied sincerely. A flash of surprise crossed James's mother's eyes, but then she just smiled and put the teacup down on the table. "Too hard." At that time she did not say anything more, but inside her heart was a wave of emotions. Just worried, both curious and a little admiring. A girl with such an ordinary background, why can keep James' heart? A person who had so many better options, by social standards. But what made Mrs. Elena unable to take her eyes off Tu Diep? It's the way she looks at James. In that look there is no ambition, no calculatio. I only have concern and love very sincerely. When James poured more tea for his mother, Tu Diep gently placed her hand on his hand, as a gentle reminder, made James's mother feel her heart sink. "Mom," after tea, when Tu Diep went to the kitchen to help cook with the maid, she called James out to the garden. "Do you know what you are doing?" "I know, Mom." She was the one who didn't leave her child even when everything fell apart. For money, not for status, I know. James' mother was silent for a long time and then sighed softly. Love is just a part, but living together for life is another story. We don't know if the girl can handle the pressure of life with children or not. But if you choose, I will watch. Owed against but not fully accepted. Tu Diep nodded. Even though she didn't say it, her heart was starting to waver. Maybe the girl named Tu Diep, with all sincerity and purity, is what Diep's tired heart needs most. James's mother continued. James's mother's gradually changing feelings towards Tu Diep. The following days, Mrs. Elena stayed at James's house to rest. But everyone knows, she was silently observing Tu Diep bit by bit. Tu Diep doesn't talk much, but her eyes are sharp. She saw Tu Diep wake up early every morning, hand carry basket to market to buy vegetables, sometimes pick vegetables from the small garden behind the house. She is not afraid of sun and wind, or complain about other trivial matters. Some days it rains. Tu Diep wore a conical hat and ran out. Cover the orchid pots that Grandma Eleno brought from France. Look at that scene, Mom. James, the person who was very careful with each orchid branch, frowned slightly, but then said nothing. Oh, blame. That evening, after meal, Mrs. Elena pulled out a handkerchief to wipe her lips and said softly, "Today's braised fish porridge is delicious. Tastes like old days in the countryside." Duke Zai opened his eyes wide in surprise. I don't think she will praise me. Deem also suddenly glanced at her mother, then looked at Tu Diep, full of hope. Yes, yes. I learned from my grandmother. Fish must be cooked over low heat. Add some fresh coconut water to make the meat firmer. James' mother looked at the young girl. Facial expression remained calm as usual, but deep in his eyes appeared something very different, maybe soft-hearted. Another day, Mother James met Tu Diep, secretly put a gray wool scarf on the sofa, the scarf she was planning to give to her grandmother, but she did not dare to hand it over for fear of being rejected. She just stood silently in the dark hallway. Seeing that action, my heart suddenly tightened. No one forced Tu Diep to do that. Lonely, just want to be cared for, loved without status, but simply because it is the family of the person she loves. That evening, when only mother and son were left sitting in the living room, James's mother said, "Mom used to think you should marry someone of equal ability, can walk with children to big parties, understand the deals, know how to behave in high society." James waited silently for her to continue. "But now I understand. There are times the most precious thing is someone who can pick vegetables for their children, cook rice and shelter the orchids my mother brought home from the rye. He doesn't need to be perfect, just sincere." Tu Diep, James held his mother's hand, choked with emotion, unable to speak. The next morning, Tu Diep was surprised to see James' mother give her the old silk scarf. "Tell, it's almost winter. Wear this when you go to the market to keep warm." "Yes, thank you." I was so touched that I almost cried. She smiled and walked away, leaving behind a look that is no longer cold as before, but warm as the early winter Sioux. James' mother guides the leaf into another world. One windy afternoon, Grandma Eleno sat in the living room, hands turning over old photo albums. James went out to meet a partner. In the house, only she and Tu Diep remained. "Come here, sit with me for a bit." Her voice was steady, neither urgent nor cold. Tu Diep was a little worried and sat down on the edge of the chair. "Yes, uncle, call me. Do you know the road you are going? Ot always flat." She was silent. Loving someone like James, you don't just love his heart, but also know how to protect that person from society. Tu Diep clenched her hands. She had thought of this, but where to start? James' mother took out a small box and opened it. Inside is a set of milky pearl jewelry. "Mom, this is a wedding gift that James's grandmother left for you. Today, Mom let me borrow. We have a party at the business association tomorrow night, where I need to learn to stand beside James, like a worthy woman." "Uncle," Tu Diep gaped. "I wear farmer clothes. I speak with a country accent, and I don't like wearing slippers, Uncle. Because I think like that, Mom has to teach me. She looked at her with a stern but not cold gaze. Mom doesn't need me to be a model lady. Mom just needs you to know how not to. James was gossiped about. That road is very long, but no one is born knowing how to walk on it. The class of aristocratic behavior begins. The next day in the big room, James' mother said, "Start from the way you walk." She took a book and put it onto Diep's head. "Walk straight with shoulders level. Don't bow your head like when you go to the market to buy fish sauce. Purple leaves sway like onions in the wind." The book fell with a thud. James' mother remained calm. Just like that, step by step, eye by eye, smile by smile. How to hold a wine glass. How to nod to strangers, how to respond to questions like, "Who are you? Hey game, where do I know you?" And especially how to deal with polite sarcasm. James' mother teaches not by theory but by practice. She played the role of a snobbish lady to test Tu Diep's heart. "I heard you are a gourd seller." She asked meaningfully. "Yes, that's right. But I sell clean and sweet gourds grown by myself. Everyone who eats it praises it." Tu Diep replied with a silly smile. Jmez's mother laughed for the first time, truly laughing. Imperfect but honest answer. Sometimes it makes people appreciate it more than a fake answer. James' important party approaching. James entered the house, saw Mother and Tu Diep looking at an invitation card together. He paused. The scene before my eyes was so peaceful, different from the stress he feared. "What are you two doing?" "I train for the battlefield." His mother said, "The business party tomorrow. You should prepare yourself mentally. Your girl will shine." He looked at Tu Diep and she smiled softly, eyes full of determination, no longer timid as before. "I feel my heart ache with happiness.